I'm a normal guy. I live in a small yet overpriced apartment on the eastern side of a small, nondescript town. Too boring for even tumbleweeds to rest and grab a drink. It's got so little distinguishing it from any other city, municipality, or rudimentary village, it might as well be anywhere. Or wherever. That's not a complaint, though. I'm fond of the quiet. It's a shame, then, that I enjoy so little of it. Above me resides the busiest lead guitarist I've ever had the pleasure of sharing a ceiling with. He calls himself Domino, a nickname he says was bestowed upon him by an ex. She says I bring everyone down with me. For as long as we've been neighbors, he's never played with the same band twice. And the ever-rotating cast of leather-clad punks hauling instruments excitedly up and then hours later dejectedly down the hallway staircase are a sure sign of his prowess. Below, a family of 3, comprised of a single mother and her 2 sons. Beatrice, despite having lived in the town only a short while longer than I have, is already the sheriff's deputy. Well respected among the townsfolk, she's also a valued member of the community, known for spending her off days delivering home-cooked meals to wherever's elderly populace. Her packed schedule is likely only possible because her boys are the cherubs on the vaulted ceilings of German cathedrals come to life. That and crime is as abundant here as cell phone towers. That is to say, nearly non-existent. Much like everything else in town, the pharmacy, the general goods store, the drive-in, yes, there is no dedicated theater for projecting films, the town hall, and the museum/curios hut off to the western edge, the apartments give off the impression that they were constructed long before building regulations were a thing. None of the locals seem to mind much, though, and outsiders like myself and the deputy think it adds a kind of personality to the otherwise dull little province. I keep myself busy during the days with my position as cashier in the nation's last operating CD store. Not vinyl or cassette, because that might be at least fleetingly profitable with the current hipster craze, but thousands upon thousands of unopened silver rings of hot jams. Okay, lukewarm jams. Look, the heat of our jams are purely up to subjective taste, but given that our only patrons come to either unload their own unneeded CDs in this, the age of digital media, or ask where the good stuff is, it's safe to say our stock will be attracting very few high-bidding collectors. It is, however, a decent gig. I'm there as often as customers are, and my boss, if you can call her that with the amount of oversight she does, is only in the CD selling business until her dreams of touring the continental US with her beat poetry troupe come to fruition. After a long day of not tending to customers, one needs to unwind. Wherever doesn't have much in the way of nightlife, but for those seeking peace and relative quiet away from rock star neighbors, well, there's the park. The community park, probably a wash of vibrant primary colors in its heyday, had all rusted to the same dingy crimson from disuse. No one but myself and the foolhardiest of truth or dare victims visit these days. Perfectly non-threateningly ugly during the daytime, its charm is most evident when the moon is high, the sky deepens to an inky black, and the streetlights are abuzz with moths. That's when I like to take the latest edition of the Wherever Gazette, kick my feet up onto one of the empty benches nearest a gently humming lamppost, and review the town happenings in total solitude. As expected, there are no happenings. But I'm not alone for long. The chilly wind, bereft of trees to dissipate through, whips through the open night, whistling between the metal fixtures littering the park grounds. They squeak slightly, caracole imperceptibly, and the heavy wind is gone. Now, in the stillness, only tiny gusts still quietly moving to and fro, I believe I see a swing saddle, suspended from 2 chains red with rust, jostle next to its perfectly immobile mate. Shaking it off, I return to my paper. Lines of black text block my view so that I can only hear what happens next. There's a clanking, a rustling of metal links muffled by distance. The wind, surely. The jangling becomes louder, faster, and more rhythmic. A squeak and silence. A squeak and silence. It's as if a butcher is sharpening his foot-long cleaver mere yards away. Folding the top of my newspaper slowly down, I watch the swing seat, empty of anything but air, flying up to its apex, hovering momentarily, and then falling backward in a complete arc as if weighed down. Weighed down by what? The swing next to it remains perfectly still, unfazed by the other's motion. When gaping begins to dry my throat out, I calmly fold the Wherever Gazette on an article about 21 uses for asbestos and place it by my side. I walk out onto the grassy area before the playground equipment and ask, stupidly, "Is anyone there?" For a moment, the swinging stops and the saddle falls limply. Again, stupidly, I venture, "I'm not going to hurt you." It should be noted that as things stand, I'm not much in the position to do any hurting. Steadily, as if pushed by a fairy, the swing gains forward momentum again. "Are you alone?" I ask. This time, the giggling is followed by the brittle creaking of joints moving for the first time in a decade, and the roundabout situated near the middle of the park begins to make slow, gurgling turns, dipping at certain points along its revolution on an uneven base. Each side of a seesaw to the right of the swing set, where both swings are now invisibly occupied and flying in opposite directions, travels up and then down with a heavy thwack. The air is suddenly burbling with the cheerful overlapping laughs of children, somehow farther away than I can see and close enough to surround me. "Where are your parents?" I pause. "Do you know where you are? Can I help you?" "You want me to play?" As the words leave my mouth, the giggling erupts, a cacophony of ecstatic voices, a jumble of emotions that speak without saying a word. And out from the darkness, into the safe aura of the street lamp, an object rolls across the turf, and upon tapping the toe of my shoe, comes to a stop. "I was never any good at kickball." But they'll hear none of that. I give the red rubbery sphere my best, and ultimately a very feeble, jab into the giggling shadows, and they, either in satisfaction or jeering, laugh the laughs of children entertained. We continued this back and forth for hours, me occasionally going to kick the ball, and the kids pulling it back at the last instant. A classic goof. As midnight comes and goes, and my legs begin to cramp up in that way that they do only after a long game of kickball with ghosts, I decide to call it a night, collect my paper, and head back home. These specters of children, of course, protest, begging me to play with them forever. This would be adorable if it wasn't tinged with the threat of spiritual imprisonment. Kids do say the darndest things. I muddle over how much I actually like my job, and then shake my head. By promising to visit as often as possible, I'm able to keep autonomy over my immortal soul, while also making a cool new group of friends. See, anything's possible if you broaden your horizons. Anyway, that's just the sort of thing that goes on in this quaint, unassuming town. The people are kind, the weather is sunny, and if you keep a positive outlook, you probably won't be spirited away. But what am I telling you for? I bet you live in a town just like this one. It's all the same, here, there, wherever.